everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and welcome to Live Q&A. Today is October 7th, 2019. We do as a Dice Tower a live Q&A each week, or almost every week anyway. This week we were going to talk about Dice Tower East, and we are going to talk about Dice Tower East. Originally, Sharon Mannon, who is the manager, the convention director of Dice Tower East, was going to be here, but she needs to work on the actual website as it's going live tomorrow. So I have her texting me, though. So if there's any questions and I can't answer them completely, she will text them and get back to me. So what I'm going to be doing here is this is a regular Q&A, so you can ask me anything about games or not games or whatever. That's fine. I'm going to give priority to Dice Tower East questions, but before that, why don't I give you sort of an info dump about Dice Tower East, and this may answer all the questions when we start out with. Probably not, though, because I know how that is. Dice Tower East. Dice Tower East is a convention we're running in Orlando, Florida. The dates are July 1st through the 5th of 2020. It's going to be held at the Florida Hotel, which is part of the Florida Mall. It is a convention center that has multiple ballrooms, but they're all really close to each other. And this hotel, if you go to TripAdvisor, is extremely highly rated on TripAdvisor. Fantastic place. I've been there. I've stayed there. Really enjoy it. But we'll come back to that. The point is, why should you come to Dice Tower East? Well, I assume that if you're watching this, or if you've watched one of our other things, you're a fan of the Dice Tower channel. But what's going to be special about Dice Tower East? Well, first of all, it is an open gaming convention. You know, this is a convention all about gaming. That is the whole point of it. So for the 5 days that it's open, once the convention opens till we close it, you're going to be able to just game. Open gaming, grab it. In fact, we're going to be working on some things. I still have some ideas percolating and such of making it to promote people gaming with other people. You know, teacher wanted signs and player wanted signs, but I want to go even farther than that. And if past conventions have any proof of this, the people who come to our conventions are extremely friendly and fantastic, and you'll be able to find people to play with. This, coupled with the Dice Tower Library. At the point of Dice Tower East, the Dice Tower Library will probably be around 1,500 games. I say probably because I'm not quite sure what the numbers are. Right now, it's close to 1,400. And you say, well, you'll surely get more than 100 games till then. Well, of course. But we also highly collate our games. We go through, and no one plays this game. We pulled it out. Our goal is to have a library. When you go in, you know that every game in that library, somebody thinks is a fantastic game. I mean, I'm not only putting in games I like, I'm deliberately putting in games that I'm not a fan of, but I know that many other people like. And so when you go to the library, we've already shown off and put together the library at Dice Tower Retreat. It will also be at Dice Tower Cruise and Dice Tower West. I am constantly working on this library every week. Games come in, I decide if they're good enough to go in the library, and each week I also go in the library, go through and say this game doesn't make the cut, so it's probably not going to stay in the library. And a wide variety, from the heaviest of heavy games, we're putting Roads and Boats and 18xx games in the library and war games in the library, to the lightest of the light. There should be, I mean, if you can think of a fantastic game, it's in there. And we're working hard to consistently upgrade them. Vernon Piper has painted several of the games in the library, and he's working on more of them. I'll find components and upgrades to make the thing in the library fantastic. If it's a roll and write, we laminate it, and we'll have markers that you can use. If it's a game that there's upgraded pieces, I try to get those to put them in the game. If there's weird promos that might be fun to have with the game, then I'll hunt those down and we put them in. So the library is going to be fantastic. This is then coupled with the Hot Games area. The Hot Games area, we ran that last year at Dice Tower Convention, and we've had it other places. I plan to make this the biggest one yet. Because one of the things we know at conventions is it's kind of tough when someone borrows a game and keeps it out for 7-8 hours. I'm not a fan of that at all. But if we have them set up in the Hot Games area where they're already set up, people can play it, they're done, it gets reset, the next people can jump in. And in the Hot Games area, the Dice Tower folks will be milling around there. I plan to teach volunteers as many of the games as I possibly can. That will probably be where you'll find me half the time in this area. And so these games will be set up and ready for people to play. And what games will be in the hot area area, well, we'll know more about that probably in June, because I kind of waffle and watch how games go up and down. We'll have some of the games that are about to come out at Gen Con. We'll be there early. And some of the hot games from Essen, if you haven't played them yet from the previous year, will be there. And games that have just been released. So we'll try to put as many of these in this one area. I already know what area it's going to be in the hotel. And I'm just excited about the hot games room. We also have the Dixons running the kids room. The Dixons have run the kids room at the Dice Tower Convention. They do a fantastic job. My kids go there every year, and it is just a fantastic experience where they go there and they play games with other kids. And my kids are not like hardcore gamers, which is odd considering they're Vasel, right? We play games, but they do not miss this. They play more games here than they do with me, like in months. We also, we're being this year in 2020, the Dice Tower Convention is going to be sponsored by Portal Games, who will also be giving a game to each attendee who comes. So that's exciting. What's the game going to be? Well, you have to wait till you get there to find out. But not only Portal Games, who's going to be there, and we want to thank them for their sponsorship. Cool Stuff will be there selling games, and we have several different publishers. So far we've lined up Arcane Wonders, Indie Game Studios, Gray Fox Games, Pandasars, Czech Games Edition, Luma Games, Greenbrier Games, and Colossal Games. And I'm sure more will be on the way. Now, there's not going to be tons of exhibitors there. Some of them will be out demoing their games in one area, and some will be in our exhibition hall. So that's a smaller area than it will be in the past, but we want you to go check out that stuff. But again, the focus in this convention will be on the open gaming. There will be a few events there. I'm cutting the events way down because we wanted to have just a few events. The Dice Tower will be doing a top 10 there. We'll be running several game shows, including the return of Wits and Wagers will be coming back. There will be a flea market. There will be a virtual flea market. And I know some people like the late night gaming. We'll certainly have an area where if you like Werewolf and Two Rooms and a Boom, you'll be able to play those games at night. The Dice Tower crew will be there. Now, not every Dice Tower staff member can make every Dice Tower event, but if there's one event that you'll see a lot of us at, I'll be there for sure, and many others will be there. That is Dice Tower East. I want to talk a little bit about the folks who are running Dice Tower East. So I have a picture here for you. In the middle there is Sharon Madden. She's the director of Dice Tower East, and she is doing a fantastic job. I'm just really impressed with everything she's putting together. On her left, well, no, on your left, I'm sorry, is Nina Kursid, who has been involved with the Dice Tower for a long time, behind the scenes doing a lot of stuff, and I'm just excited about that. And then on your right there is Lindsay Friend, who is the Dice Tower promotions director, and she works with us, and she's working with the vendors, and I'm just so thrilled. All three of these folks have been doing a fantastic job putting this convention together. As I mentioned before, the Dice Tower East is going to be held at the Florida Hotel. And again, just a fantastic place connected to the Florida Mall. The benefits of it being connected to the mall are, first of all, lots of great food options in the mall. A food court, there's a sushi place, there's Buca de Beppo. And then, of course, if you're willing to drive in Orlando, I believe there's 70 billion restaurants. That might be an exaggeration slightly, but there's a lot of restaurants in there. The Florida Mall also has a ton of parking. You won't have any problem finding a parking spot. And then there's different things in the Florida Mall. My kids personally like the Crayola experience that's there. But there's also a lot of stores if you want to do shopping and stuff. It's about 12 minutes from the airport. And it's about 20 minutes from everything else that you'd want to go to: Disney World, Universal Studios, SeaWorld, etc. We are going to be, so if you sign up for this, the Dice Tower East tomorrow, you'll be able to get a ticket, or you'll be able to get a ticket and a hotel room at the Florida Hotel. If you get a hotel somewhere in the area, at night we're going to be running a shuttle from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. to any hotels that are in a 5-mile radius. Now, all the details of how that shuttle is going to work, we'll get those organized. But if you're like, oh, I want to go back to my place at night, I don't want to walk in the dark, no problem. We're going to try to help out in that situation. And tickets for the convention go on sale tomorrow at noon Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight, 12 noon in Philadelphia, New York, Miami. Alrighty, let's jump into the questions. Oh, this is a good one. Robin says, do all three of those play board games outside of work? Well, I know. I just played some games with Lindsay on Friday because she came down here. We were talking about things. Sharon is in my joined my gaming group. Sharon and Warren have been playing games longer than I have, probably. Her husband, Warren, they've been doing a lot of games. And then Anina, she's been playing games. She's been on a local game group for a while, too. Let's see, is the full library coming on the cruise too? Or just a good sample, as I think was last year? No, the full library, we're going to bring the full library on the cruise. The library will be bigger, obviously, by Dice Tower East, but not too much bigger, because again, as I get new games in, I will try to pull some out, because it's economically wasteful for me to have, for example, 2 full shelves of games that no one ever plays. You know, and then they just sit there, and you might say, well, they might be played. Yeah, but if they're not getting played, I don't want that either. What's my favorite non-direct confrontation in games? Probably worker placement, to take someone else's spot. If a game is out of the library, will it ever come back if it's suddenly popular again because of a new expansion, for example? Oh, sure. However, I have a pretty good feel for that sort of thing. So if I take a game out of the library, I'm like, no one ever plays this. Probably an expansion is not going to make that game suddenly super popular again. Expansions are very rarely. I would challenge you to think of an expansion that took a game that was not popular and made it popular again. Maybe you can think of one, and I will do it. Who at the Dice Tower wrote the Kickstarter Gloomhaven scenarios? Well, the scenario itself was put together by Isaac Childress, who did Gloomhaven. I gave him some ideas of what I wanted to see in it, and he then wrote the scenario on that. And then Roy wrote the flavor text. I edited that, and then Isaac edited both of our things. Would it be possible to give some context as to why pricing this year is the way it is? I think many of us were expecting it to be less expensive than the previous year. Because I want to make this con as good as I possibly can. And to make it as good as I possibly can, I want to make it a profitable affair. And it's not that I'm trying to be greedy or anything, but if I want to have people who, and you know, because if you volunteer, for example, for the Dice Tower, we will reimburse you your ticket. And if you want to be involved in volunteering at all, you have to buy a ticket to come to the convention, and then we'll reimburse you afterwards. But email Nina@dicetower.com, Nina@dicetower.com for that information. But at the same time, if we're going to do various things and to pay for our library and get everything there, and I don't want to lose money on this, I want to make the best possible experience. So we picked a price point which we think will cover all that and allow us to run a fantastic convention. If I think, you know, I mean, these things can be adjusted as time has gone by, but I want to do the math correctly. I definitely don't want us to run a convention where we lose money. Do I buy things on Groupon? Once in a while. My wife likes it more than I do. What's my opinion on Tapestry? I've done a whole review on it, so you can go check that out. You ever think about writing a book? I wrote a blog for a while. I think you could find it. I'm not a very good writer. Everyone has their skill sets. Writing is not mine. I know you can work to be a better writer, but I wrote a blog one time that I was going to turn into a book. It never happened, where it was written from a guy who lived in a city where all this stuff happened. And so superhero, like his next door neighbor is Superman, essentially. And, you know, he's annoyed that his neighbor disappears at night. He's annoyed that someone's, you know, there's like the cops in the cop show in the city. He's driving the car and they throw him out of the car and take his car off and go. And he's that guy that they use his car then to fight somebody else in a superhero battle. Some ordinary guy irritated about all this annoyances that it is to be in a movie city per se. All right, I have a game prototype I'd like to bring. Is this allowed? How can I get people to play it? You can certainly bring prototypes to Dice Tower's conventions, and this is the same policy I have at all my conventions. You can certainly bring prototypes, but you cannot browbeat people into playing it. That's just the case. You can ask politely and people can play it. You cannot take over a table for the duration of a day and make that your prototype table. You can go to a table like any other table, set up your game, maybe someone plays it, But you can't camp at a table and do it, and you definitely can't use signage. Why? Because we have people who pay to be exhibitors at these conventions, and if you're doing it for free, that's not fun. Also, some people feel pretty awkward about the whole prototyping thing. Some people love prototypes, don't get me wrong. But some people don't want to do it, and then they feel guilty because you're sitting there like, please. We want Dice Tower to be about playing games, but there are thousands of published games, and that's the main focus. Prototypes is not a bad thing. That's how games get made, but it's best if it's done in small doses. What Dice Tower celebrities will be there? At this point in time, I don't know, except I can say Tom Vasel will be there, Z Garcia will be there, Eric Summerer will be there, and of course all our staff and stuff will be there. Which other ones will be there? We're still working on that. If you could add miniatures to any game without any, which would you pick? I don't know that I want miniatures in a ton of games. Maybe Command and Colors Ancients. It has little blocks. The blocks are nice, but little plastic ancient troopers would not be bad. A couple things from Sharon, by the way. Sharon has played games, she said, for about 20 years. And if you're going to work at the con as a volunteer, not volunteer, I'm sorry, a worker meeple, you have to work at least 10 hours to get reimbursed. Are there any items you keep an eye on for Black Friday? Not particularly. I don't like Black Friday at all, going out shopping and stuff, but I do like the Cyber Monday and that. We normally look at software and things that we can get for the Dice Tower, so we keep an eye on that sort of thing, but it has to be something that I can get online, because I do not like the whole rush out to the store type thing. Any inside information on a reprint for Automania? Not at this point in time. It's always possible that they'll reprint it in the future. We'll see. But I don't know. I remember those roving playtest gangs who used to be at the con. Wasn't safe to walk down the corridor. They jump you, hit you over the head, and then you woke up with rule sets in your hands. No. And but you know what? I'll tell you what. I think that at cons, the number one complaint I get from con goers about various things, and don't get me wrong, people complain about everything, but is they'll say, oh, you know, this person here, they wanted me to play test their game, and I didn't want to say no, and then it was bad, and then we found out it was 2 hours long. You know, and what are you supposed to do in that circumstance? And so I also, and for me, you know, exhibitors will complain and they'll say, look, that person, they set up a sign, they put flyers on the table. Did they pay for that table? Well, then why am I paying for this? And that's just really not fair to everybody involved. DC Bizarro World or Marvel Zombies? Probably DC Bizarro World. I don't really like zombies that much. How many rooms does the Florida Hotel have? I don't remember what the exact number is. There's several hundred. If you sign up early, do you get first choice of the 3 hotels? There's only one hotel at this point in time, the Florida Hotel. There are other hotels, and I can actually give you the names of some of those other hotels that are in the area. We recommend the Ramada, Orlando, the Econo Lodge, the Baymont Inn and Suites, and Red Roof Inn. And those are ones that we can recommend. And if you want to stay at one of those, you just book it yourself and get it on your own. Do we know anything yet about merchandise, shirts, etc., tables for the flea market? No. Once we have everybody signed up, we'll eventually send out things about the flea market and figure that out. The flea market, there should be plenty of space in the flea market, because the flea market will run on a morning when there's not as much gaming going on, so we can take over one of the ballrooms for that. For merchandise, for shirts and stuff, all I can tell you is that it will be there, but I don't know exactly what and the format of it at this point in time. Jason will be there, duh. Yes, Jason Levine will also be there. Sorry. And I should mention, Jason has done a fantastic job also. I showed the picture of the 3 ladies who worked on this, and then in the background you would see Jason, because he's too busy running and getting something done. What other games do you think could be a good play experience, if any, using delayed turns over a long period of time, like chess? Kind of like play by email, where you can play the game and take a turn and then someone else takes a turn. Diplomacy, even though I hate diplomacy, is really good at that, especially since you can talk back and forth about your turns. Other than that, I'm not a big fan of it myself. Other people might like it more than me. I'm not a big fan of taking a turn and then coming back, because I have to then kind of go, all right, so what was happening in this game again? I'd rather just play a game in real time. But if you look online, there's people who do like this sort of thing. Mostly confused as to why the hotel price is about the same price as last year. Ticket to price, I kind of find reasonable. Oh, well, that's just how much the hotel costs in a sense. I mean, now when you pay for the hotel using our thing, that includes everything. It includes the taxes and fees and all that sort of thing. So it's the way it works out. We worked out a deal with the hotel to get these rooms for that price. We also worked out a way that we can have the area there where we can play games, and no hotels. I mean, I cannot emphasize enough how nice the hotel staff there is. They're unbelievably over the top. I'm really excited to work with them. Do you let your kids put stickers on game components? Oh yeah, they're way better at it than I am. Do you prefer co-op or versus games? Seems that the board game market has really shifted towards co-op games. Not really. If you sat down, like every year, we do the Dice Tower Awards, and we have a co-op game category. It's not half the games. It's not even a fourth of the games. I'm not even sure it's a tenth of the games that come out. So yes, there's a lot more cooperative games come out than used to, but just not nearly as many. And so which one do I prefer? Whichever one I want at any point in time. I got to think the hotel has 511 rooms, but we don't have all of them because airline companies have reserved some of the rooms for their pilots, which is pretty cool though, right? Because when you were at the hotel, anyone you run across is either from the Dice Tower Convention or they're an airline pilot. So I thought that was kind of a neat thing, just exciting to have that. And just to get around in a hotel, at the bottom there's a breakfast area, there's a Starbucks right down there at the bottom that you can get to, and all this stuff. Like if you want to go from one end of the convention to the other end, from one ballroom down to the other ballroom, I can't see anything taking more than 10 minutes. Will the Dice Tower be reviewing Dune? Somebody in a Dice Tower did review Dune, I thought. If not, they will be. Tom, go see Joker. Don't bring the wife and kids, though. Nah. First of all, I don't go see movies on my own. I think 20 years ago was the last time I went to the movie theater by myself. I just don't do it. I could go with Jason. He's invited me to go see Joker, actually. But the main reason I didn't is because it's just not I'm not interested in a movie about a villain. I like superheroes. I like good guys. I don't necessarily want to see a movie about the bad guy. I get that it's interesting and blah, blah, blah. But I guess Suicide Squad was about bad guys, right? But they were really heroes, what have you. There's none of that with the Joker. It's not like, well, he's a misunderstood bad guy. No, he's just a bad guy. So while I think the Joker's an interesting villain, and I love when Batman fights him, I don't want to see a movie with just the bad guy. Will you see Dinosaur Island versus Dinogenics or Unmatched versus Funkoverse? Maybe at some point. We're going to be doing a live play of Funkoverse in a week or two, so we're going to be doing a showdown here in the studio. What board game would inspire an interesting film, and what film genre would it be? Lots of board games would inspire films, I guess. What film genre? I don't know. I know what wouldn't inspire a good film thing would be Battleship. I did hear they're remaking Clue. With Jason Bateman, I think, is directing, and I forget what it sounded interesting. I really like Clue, the original movie. Do you think a good theme or art style can make a bad game good? No. You can put lipstick on a pig. It doesn't make a bad game good. It can enhance it for sure. But I played some really beautiful games, and I didn't like the game. I'm still not going to recommend it. That being said, a really great game with poor components can make me not want to play it. Jay Leno or David Letterman? I guess Jay Leno. He always just seemed nicer. Letterman always felt like he was laughing at the guests. Jay Leno seemed to be laughing with them. But not a big deal. Will we be seeing a return of Spider Vasel in his amazing suit? It's always possible. What place would be the best to have a board game group meet at? No board game store or apartment. Yeah, it is tough, right? If you're not using a store, the store is like the best place for that. Like for me, I use my church. There's a place at my church to meet up, and that's always a useful thing. We have a guy in our area now who's doing one at the local library. So if you work with them, that's a possibility. Maybe a club, like if there's a different clubs in the area, sometimes they have their own area, and you can rent that out, I suppose. What are the details for the flea market at Dice Tower Con? Well, we don't have them yet, but it will be run very similar to most flea markets at most conventions. But I don't have the exact details on that, and we'll let people know as time gets closer. Maybe I could set up a game of Airlines Europe and rope some of the pilots into the hobby. Yeah, this happens every year. I remember Dice Tower Con, like 3 years ago, there was a nun convention next to it, and people were like, let's play Nuns on a Run. And yeah, okay. I think airline pilots would like any game if they're going to like games. You know, I always think it's funny, and it's like, well, I'm going to pick a game that's based on your job, and then the person comes in like, I don't want to play a game based on my job. You know, I want to play a game based on something that they find fun. Why didn't you call it Dice Tower South? Is it because Vegas needed to be called West, and you want it the opposite? I think of the New England area when I hear East. Well, it's the East. I mean, why New England is the North. I mean, there's 4 directions in the country, North, South, East, West. So we already had a West, so we picked East. I have to say, if we picked South, then we would have to call the Vegas North, or I don't know. The whole thing would be confusing. And I'm not planning on running 4 different conventions, so there's just 2 directions. I think East is much better. I don't think there's going to be a lot of confusion in that regard. What's your meeple color of preference? Purple, easily. What's one of your favorite games that Z and Sam can't stand? Well, we're going to probably remake this list at some point. But if you look up our top 10 list that these 2 jokers don't get, that would be, go check that out. That's a fun one that we did. If they make a new Clue movie, they should end with at least 3 different endings like the original. I agree. I really like that. Although I think the third ending, if I just rewatched it on one of the streaming services, the third ending where, was it Mr. Green? Had the very last line in that one. I'm not spoiling anything. I think I like that ending the best. Being involved in the board game hobby for many years, have you come across any conspiracy theories, rumors regarding board games, designers, publishers, etc. that you can share? Well, there's always all kinds of crazy theories. The main thing is that people think there's all this stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and there really isn't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure that companies will sit there and try to do things that, you know, will help their games sell. And publishers will work on that. But there's no, like, secret publisher, retailer, design. You know, there's none of that going on. I'm actually part of some groups that are behind-the-scene groups. And they just sit there and talk about business stuff. There's no conspiracies going on. So, yeah. I mean, I'm sure conspiracies happen in real life, but I think they're a lot fewer than people think. What do you think about cash prizing in a tournament series for board games or card games? I wouldn't get remotely close to it. I get why it exists. People like money. Magic the Gathering has worked on making money from conventions, and I hear Keyforge is about to do the same thing, but you won't catch me going near that, because when money is on the line, everyone changes. Ken says, my favorite thing about the con is playing games with the Dice Tower celebrities, like when I played Axio with you 2 years ago. Huh, I do remember that. Will there be opportunities to play with you and Z, etc.? Sure. I mean, that's why we're there. But again, realizing with the size of the convention, the chance of playing with us is not, 100% or not even high. It's possible. It might happen. If you want a high chance of playing a game with us, Dice Tower Retreat is probably your convention of choice. Do you still play Dice Throne? If so, what's your favorite character? My favorite character is the Gunslinger. And I haven't played it, in the last month or so, but I was just watching some people play it the other day, and I remembered how much I really enjoy that game. Looking forward to the revamped version of Season 1. Do you guys still play Keyforge? Will Dice Tower be checking out the set? Yes. The new set. We'll be certainly talking about the new set. I personally prefer Dice Tower South-Southeast. Dice Tower South by Southeast. Yeah, I might get sued on that one. Which you would do a convention in the Northeast. I'm at my convention limit for the time being. We're running 4 conventions. And that's one of the things that I like to point out. You know, as we do Dice Tower East, we're bringing in a lot of the stuff that we learned as we ran a Dice Tower cruise, and Dice Tower Retreat's a much smaller thing. But we learned a lot of things, and it's a learning process. We're going to be learning as we go. You know, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to fix them as quickly as we can. We're going to try to do what we can to make this the very best possible experience. My number one thing when I run anything is that people leave it having a good time. And it bugs me when people don't. Now, I have realized as time goes by that not everybody is going to like everything. You can't please everybody. It's impossible. But I try, right? And I try. But I also run a convention the way I would want to go to a convention. I want to go to a convention that has lots of open gaming, that has a hot games room, that has just friendly, fun people. And our tagline for Dice Tower Convention is the friendliest conventions around, and that's what we try to encourage. And so I have to say, and this might be getting too honest here, that when someone complains and gripes and yells about everything and says, I hate everything and I'm not coming back to your convention, I don't get too sad about that, because that person doesn't sound like they were a super fun person for people to game with. I want people to have just a fantastic time. And not everyone gets along with everybody, sure, but I want you to get along with most everybody, and that's what I want our conventions to be like. Trying to figure out what kind of gaming table to buy. Would you suggest a coffee table size table or a regular sized? Also, how much do people actually use all the accessories offered that out on? Well, first of all, I would recommend a regular size. Coffee size, I've had coffee tables in my life, I hardly ever use them, because a coffee table, the number of games you can play on it is vastly diminished. It's great for card games, not great for board games. This table size we have here is a normal size table, and many board games completely fill it up. I can't imagine having a coffee size table. As for accessories offered, that's up to you. If you have one that holds game pieces, we found those to be nice. Card holders are nice, and cup holders are nice. Those are the 3 main ones. I have little drawers and stuff. That's neat. The dice towers that hook onto the table, they're okay. The charging stations and the lights and the music, that's cool, but I wouldn't say it's necessary. Ask your local government if they have any community or cultural resources in way of places to use. Sure, you could always ask about these sorts of things. Have you ever changed your mind about much older game reviews you've made? Well, actually, that's something I do every week. It's called Look Back. It's a video that we put out each Wednesday where I go back and look at reviews I did 1, 5, and 10 years ago. And then if I've changed my mind on them, I'll talk about it. Now, usually it's minor changes. I would say more often than not, my opinion may have gone down, but sometimes it's gone up. In fact, the one I just recorded that this morning for this coming Wednesday. And one of the games, my opinion has gone up on because I just found myself enjoying it more and more. Since the tip of Florida is the furthest south you can get in the U.S., I think it works. Well, sure, it works. I'm just saying I don't think Dice Tower East doesn't work. That's all. We actually we have some whiteboards in here, and when we were first thinking about what to call the convention, we had all kinds of names that were thrown up on there. And at the end of the day, Dice Tower East was the simplest one. Maybe in the future there could be a Dice Tower Europe convention. Maybe in Barcelona would be great. Oh, sure. Never say never to that sort of thing. But let's just do one thing at a time. What is the heaviest board game you really like? If any, easily Pitch Car. Pitch Car really gives me a workout when I move it around. It is extremely heavy. I have it in 2 cases. I have to carry them one at a time. And then I have all those long tracks. Tom, I saw a lot of Keyforge at a convention last year. Any plans maybe in the future to hold sanctioned tournaments at Dice Tower Cons for Games? I don't plan to. I'm not saying we won't. There are some sanctioned tournaments I think are really neat that if they were possible, like Pandemic is a really good sanctioned tournament. But for the most part, I don't want to have tournaments at my conventions because they take up a lot of space, they take up a lot of work, and the tournament atmosphere is a different kind of atmosphere, and it's already at plenty of cons. See, that's the great thing, right? When I don't have something at my con like tournaments, I'm not saying they're necessarily bad, but there are other cons out there that do have them. So for example, role-playing game, you're probably not going to find a lot of role-playing at the Dice Tower Con. That's fine though, because there are other conventions that do put an emphasis on it. So I'm not saying these things are bad, they're just not necessarily what kind of convention that I'm focused on pushing. I've tried to push open gaming. Tournament play kind of actively works against open gaming because you'll have an area that only people can play in a tournament. There'll be a table here, it will be empty because there's no one playing at that point in time, and yet you can't start a game there because at 3:30 someone is going to be playing a game there. That's why. Have you ever played any trading card games when you were young? Well, thank you for that. First of all, I'm not that young. The first trading card came out when I was in college. But yes, I did play some in college. I started with, the first one I ever played was Marvel Overpower, then jumped to Star Wars. From Marvel Overpower I went to Battletech, and then from Battletech I did Star Wars. Or was it Star Wars? Yeah, then Star Wars. And then I dabbled with Magic briefly, looked at several other ones, didn't really do those, and then kind of faded off the scene. I've played many of them as time has gone by, but the only four I've ever put any kind of energy into was Overpower, Star Wars, Battletech, and Magic. I bought Pokemon. I bought a lot of Pokemon when it first came out, but I thought the game was too simple, couldn't find anyone to play it with, got rid of all my stuff, very regretful since it was the very first set of Pokemon, but what do you do? Do you think the shorter Ticket to Ride London or New York has replaced the longer one? No, I don't think so. In fact, the newest map that they're releasing at Essen, I think, is the longer map. I'm going to my first con this weekend, Sin City Con in Cincinnati. I'm going solo. Can you give me a tip to help me find some games to jump in on, or is this something I shouldn't even worry about? Well, if you're going to a con and you're going by yourself, publishers, if there's any publishers there, might be demoing a game. That's a great way to jump in. If they have teacher want it or players want it, look for those. Look all around and look for a place to jump in on those. If you can't find any of those, then standing in the library area often helps because there's people there looking for a game, and you might say, hey, is anyone looking for someone to join a game with them? That's usually a good place to find people. Or go pick a game out. I would pick a somewhat popular game, sit at a table, and put up a player's want it sign yourself, or a teacher's want it sign if you don't know how to play it. What are the favorite non-kiddie games that you find the majority of your kids playing? Probably Space, Star Realms. It was really funny. I sat down with my kids and we had some deck builder. I forget what the deck builder was, and I was like, okay guys, this is what a deck builder is. All right, so you're gonna have these cards in your hand, and I started going through it, and he's like, is this like Star Realms? It's like, what? What are you talking about? They had learned Star Realms at the kids' room at Dice Tower, and so they already knew how to play it. So I was like, yeah, it's like Star Realms. Oh my word. I saw Dizzle at Gen Con, but I never played Ganchan Clever or Twice as Clever. What's a good starting point for roll and rights in this rough category? Wow, there's so many. I don't even know what would be a good starting point. There's so many out there. I mean, I tend to like the ones that have more going on, like the Roll Through the Ages. I really like that one. But I mean, there's simple ones, wow, that's a tough category. At some point, I'll do my own top 10 roll and rights. Now, Manny and Suzanne did a podcast on that, though. What went into the decision to charge locals and those who are unable to book the limited number of rooms 25 more per badge and excluding them from the early gaming on Tuesday? Well, first of all, we're not charging them more. We're charging people less who are getting the rooms at the Florida Hotel. We need to fill those rooms up so that we get the space and everything. So that's a bonus for them. And so is the early gaming. So we're not punishing local people. We're instead rewarding it the other way around. I mean, you can look at anything negatively or positively, and this was done for positive reasons. What's my favorite Risk game and why? Of the Risk game, Risk Legacy. Why? Because it changes from game to game. Have you ever been intimidated by a rule book enough that you have never played the game even though you were excited to play the game itself? Yes. Your next question is going to be what games? Well, we'll see. Do people bring games to conventions and they bring their own games to the convention? Sure. Lots of people bring their own games to conventions. I know a lot of people does it. I know one of the people who comes to lots of the Dice Tower things always shows up with a whole carload of games and ready to play. And that's fine, you know, and I'm glad that people do that. We have the library so you don't have to, but if you want to, why not? You make the convention better for other people. What do you think about release dates and big box retailers? Seems like places like Target and Walmart have the upper hand since companies want to get games on their shelves. I don't know what the question is there, although it is interesting. Keyforge is supposed, the new set of Keyforge is supposed to be released at Essen, the first day of Essen, and it's already out in Targets. I don't know who messed up on that one, but Targets all over the country are selling this new Keyforge set. So their release date, which is 2 weeks from Thursday, and it's like it went out 3 weeks early, so I don't know what happened there. Is Tumbling Dice still in print? Can't find it in South Africa? If I understand correctly, Eagle Griffin, these are expensive games to reprint, so they wait till there's enough demand, then they print a pile of them, and then they run out, and then they print a pile again. So if it's not in print right now, I would imagine it will be in print eventually. Any plans to label the bags for components in the Dice Tower library? Sure helps with putting away and opening. No, I've thought about this before, but then I would need to go buy thousands of bags to replace all the bags I have with labels on them, or put labels on all the bags. For most of the games, we're using the new Dice Tower component containers. And by the way, if you got these during the Kickstarter, I hope you're enjoying them because I'm loving them. I got like 1,000 for myself for the Dice Tower library. But when you open those, the components stay in them. So when you're done, you just put the lid on. It's really easy to remember what goes in where. I just let people use their best judgment. I'm going through the library right now, once a week, and today's that day. I go to the Dice Tower library. I open up go through shelves, open up some of the games, make sure the pieces are fine in them. I'm adding, bins, and we're rubber banding. I'm always trying to make this thing better. I'm so excited about it. I want to have a curated library because every once in a while, I just had someone send me an email with a picture of a jaded library with broken pieces and stuff, and with all due respect to Gen Con, I've seen the Gen Con library and it looks like that too. I don't want my library to look like that. I never want someone to come in the Dice Tower library and go, this thing's kind of old. No, my library needs to be hip and cool, but also have the older cool games too. And I want them to be in as the best condition they possibly can be and as cool as they can be. You mentioned recently you started playing Breath of the Wild on Switch again. Have you tried Dragon's Dogma? I don't know anything about it. Is this a open world game? Is it on? Let me look it up. I'm not nearly as up to date on. Dragon's Dogma is a role-playing hack and slash game for PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360, and an enhanced version was the Nintendo Switch. Is it open world? Ooh, maybe I'll get it. Who knows? Will you review The City soon? Probably. I haven't played it yet, though, so we'll see. I've seen your new portable game shelves that you can cover up. Do you hire a moving truck to transport them from con to con? Well, we transported them ourselves to the retreat. To the cruise, we will transport them to a special union place that will put them on the ship and then off. Then we're hiring a shipping company to take them to Dice Tower West. From Dice Tower West, they will come back to me here in Homestead. Then we will drive them up personally to Dice Tower East and back. So we'll shrink wrap them and cover them, so the game should be okay. Any review or thought on Pictionary? I don't even have Pictionary. I saw it. It looked interesting, but I don't have it. I keep seeing it at the store, and I think about buying it, and then I remember that I have about 1,000 games here that need to be reviewed. Have you ever regretted playing a game? Very rarely, right? And most of the time I regret playing a game when it's a really, really long game and I'm playing with someone and it's a really bad game and someone wants to finish it. And then you're like, oh man, I wish I'd picked a different game. But very rarely, even bad games, I'm like, well, now we know. Where might one acquire a tie that is half as good as all the ones you wear? You know what? These ties are everywhere. You can go to eBay and get ties. You can go all. I personally check my thrift store that's in my area. I check them for ties all the time. They very rarely have them, but sometimes they do. These ties, they interest me. Like this one says, "I love my daddy," which I like. My son has recently said that daddy is better than mommy, so we're gonna stick with that for a while until he gets older. Then I'm gonna have to tell him the truth. But I just like ties. I like colorful ties, and ties are always an interesting thing to me because I wear these ties, and people are like, "That's a fantastic tie," but yet the majority of people in life seem to wear really boring ties. Oh, I couldn't pull off that tie. Yeah, you could. I just don't see why people. I mean, I went to a funeral this past Saturday for a gentleman in my church who was 96 years old, and I wore a very normal, subdued tie because that's the sort of thing you'd wear to a funeral. And I wore subdued ties. If sometimes I wear a bright shirt or a bright suit coat, I might wear a subdued tie, or I might do both. I don't know. I just like wearing colorful ties. I like ties because I have a lot of ties, and I have like 5 shirts or 6 shirts or something. But it's like I have thousands of shirts because of the different combinations that I can do. When is the voting for People's Choice Top 100? Probably closer to December. I think I've announced this at times, but the Dice Tower Top 100 of all time, we're going to start it at the beginning of the year during our Kickstarter campaign. It's a way to kick off the year, Top 100 of all time. I just thought that would be a good time to do it. No, I did not finish the playthrough of Betrayal Legacy. How did you and my wife meet? We met in college. I had dated once. I had dated both of her roommates once. I had dated the person in the room next to her. And so in that process, we may have talked once. We walked and talked. Did not make any kind of, I don't remember it. I kind of remember it happening, but we both were like, yeah, I think we talked, or something to that effect. At my college, I decided to stay over the summer and be a summer worker there. Didn't have anything going on at home, really, and it was just easier to stay there. And when you stay over the summer at college, the population shrinks to like a couple hundred people. So I met her then. I met her almost right away. Her roommate over the summer was a good friend of mine, and so I met her that way, and it was a very, very fast romance, really. I met her, I asked her out on a date, she said yes. We dated, it was a good experience. We went on a second date, and I tell you, on the third date, I knew I wanted to marry her. So, I didn't ask her for 2 years after that point, but yeah, it's 20 years as of this year. It's been fantastic. She is, I don't give her enough praise on this show, but the Dice Tower exists only because of my wife being such an amazing person. And like I was talking earlier with my son, when I said that he likes daddy better than mommy, but honestly, if it wasn't for my wife, I have 7 children, if you've not noticed that, and I could not do it alone. I couldn't, I guess I could, but I don't think I could do it alone. And so I'm so thankful for her. I guess we're down to 6 now. Melody's out. She's gone. We're down to 6. And in May, we're down to 5. I don't even know how. 5 feels like a small family now. It's really weird. Dropped into the store in Miami the other day and wanted to let you know the community there was awesome. Thanks for an awesome store. Oh, no problem. In fact, I'm pushing the fact that we have a meetup group, but I've recently started a Facebook group for Miami games. If you're ever in the area, check that out and see what kind of gaming is going on. I'm not always there, but I'm trying to let people know when I will be there. Not that I mean anything, but I do bring a lot of new games, which are sometimes good and sometimes they're not. Will different Dice Tower presenter replace Sam, or will it just be you and Z doing top 10s from now on? Oh, well, we're working on that sort of thing as we go by. You'll see various people. We'll certainly have guest stars for a while, in a sense, doing top 10s, but it's going to be a step at a time, right? And yeah, who knows, you might see Sam, if we're at the same convention. Why would we not put Sam in the top 10? That'd be fun. What is it with B games at Essen this year? At least 5 B games, if not more. Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that. I just did last week my top 10 bug games, and they were all ants and spiders and cockroaches. And I thought, but it seemed like there's so many B games. If I redo the list in a couple years, maybe B games will dominate the list. What moment would you define as the birth of modern board gaming? That's a tough one. I mean, the easy answer is the Settlers of Catan in 1995. I always consider, to me, it's 1994 to 1995 for 3 reasons. Settlers of Catan, Magic the Gathering, and the Internet. Those 3 things combining. I mean, I knew the Internet was around a little bit before that, but it became popular, so people were suddenly able to find other people to get these games. People were able to do meetup groups and things like that. The Catan brought the game design in Europe to America, and Magic the Gathering suddenly made gaming make money. Stores everywhere were making money off of this thing, and also affected game design. And I think those things. I don't know after that, if you could pick a specific games and stuff, but to me, that 94, 95 watershed years there because of those 3 reasons. Will Sam be with the Dice Tower at Essen Spiel? Yes. In fact, I'll be putting up a video a little bit later this week talking about Essen Spiel. We're going to be playing games with people at Essen Spiel, and so you'll be able to sign up in a sense, and we're just going to do like a raffle of sorts to where you can play games with Dice Tower folks at the con. We'll have a table at our booth where we'll be playing games with people. What is one dish from Korea that you need to eat when you visit? There is no one. But probably budae jjigae. That's my favorite of the Korean dishes. I really like budae jjigae. But I also like bibimbap. I like dokmandu. There's so many things that I like in Korea. When me and my wife went this year, it was like, we don't have enough time to eat all the things I like. Will you ever re-review much older classics like Ticket to Ride or King of Tokyo? Maybe, but I don't see why. It's not like my review has disappeared, so it's still there. So probably not. I might do a retrospective on a game at some point. I will be taking a look at Marvel Champions. It has not been reviewed yet, but it's going to be. Have you heard of the Untitled Goose Game on the Switch? Well, no kidding. It's like all over the internet. It almost has had the opposite feeling on me because I see everyone's like, this game is amazing. And I'm like, I almost feel like it's almost like hip to like the game. So it's hard for me to realize if the game is actually really good or not. The fact of the matter is the theming of the game, the goose terrorizing people, that's funny, I guess. But those puzzle-style games, not necessarily the ones I want to play. I want to play big open-world games or RPGs. Those are the kind of games that you normally like to play. Do you think you could learn more about a stranger's personality by playing board games or by talking? Well, board games, because when I play a board game with people, I talk to them. What game would be the best to integrate food as replacements for game tokens components? You have to eat them as you play? Oh my word, I don't know. I guess a game where the board is slowly disappearing. Hey, that's my fish on cookies. What's the best game which people tend to focus on the wrong things during the first time they play it? Ooh, that's a good question. And I know there's something. Manhattan, the original game Manhattan where you build towers, people always are like, the tallest tower is so important. No, it's not. It's not at all, but people always focus on it. That's one. I'm sure there's other things too. Agricola, I must keep my people alive with their food. Well, you need to, but that's all people work on when they first play. I love the positive impact of the Jack Vasel Memorial Fund. Can you share an example of how this has helped a family impacted by it? Off the top of my head, I don't know that I can. If you go to jackvasel.org, you can see some testimonials there. And we always ask people if we can share them, because I don't necessarily want to share things without having permission to do so. What's another charity that you support that we should look into? I'll be honest, I put all my support into that charity. So it's not that I don't want to support other charities, and I have supported things in our area. I will always support the Children's Hospital just because of, what it's done in my own life. I know that the Spiel runs a charity where they put games in hospitals and things like that, and so I want to say it's called the Spiel Foundation. And there are other good charities out there. I'm not taking away from them at all. I want to design and self-publish a board game here in Morocco. Do you think it's a good idea to tailor the theme for the country specifically, or should the theme be less local? It's who you're trying to sell it to. I mean, I don't know many games that are based in Morocco, and you would know more about it than most people. And if you want people to get it, it depends. I would survey people and ask. What's the security look like at the Dice Tower Library? Guard dogs, razor wire snipers on the roof? Well, there will be people there watching the library, but we are going to have security at the hotel itself. So let me see what I have. Like I said, we have the shuttle service, but we're also going to have the Orange County Police Department will be patrolling the parking lot at night. The hotel itself has people there, and so we're going to be doing our best to keep an eye on everything that's going on and have as much security as we think is needed at the hotel. The hotel is connected to the mall, so people from the mall could wander in the main lobby of the hotel, which you can do, although you have to kind of being in the mall, you have to walk a little bit out of your way to go there. Maybe if you're looking for the Starbucks. But for the most part, they're just going to go back in the mall. Do you have a system to keep track of what games people are playing from the library and how many times a game gets played? Oh, yes. You're going to have to scan it. You'll have a badge. It's pretty simple. You scan your badge, you scan the game. We do that for a couple reasons. We want to know who has the games at any point in time. And also, I want to know the statistics, because if a game is never getting checked out. It's not going to be just a grab and go, because that's too easy of a way for games to get lost. And we've had games stolen at many of the Dice Tower events, even from the cruise. We've had games taken, or maybe, I shouldn't say stolen perhaps, but someone mistook them. That happens. It's going to be the way it is, right? When any kind of event, you can get mad about these sorts of things. I don't necessarily get mad about them. The two games that we had taken, we've just managed to replace in our library, so I'm very happy about that. But it's going to happen. But we try to minimize it happening if possible. And if you're planning to steal my games, don't come to my show. I wish the HR department at our company would use a board game as a hiring mechanism. Do you think it would work? Maybe. I don't know. What's my favorite hymn? He Lives. What are some of the numerous advantages of overalls? I guess it's a work thing. I don't really like overalls because it seems like they'd be a pain to take off and put on all the time. But it seems like for work they're good. I don't wear overalls. Alrighty. Is the library insured to protect against some kind of destruction? We are having the truck that spilled all the Chessex dice, yes. We're getting insurance and different things on the various things that we have at the Dice Tower, or we have it insured definitely at our storage unit that we have right now. Alrighty, so I'm going to end this here now because we're getting close to the end of the time. So I want to mention a few things before we go. First of all, don't forget, tell your friends, tomorrow, noon, Eastern Standard Time, it's at dicetowereast.com. There's a FAQ A lot of the information I just gave you, I got from the FAQ that Sharon wrote up. That's going to be posted on our Facebook group. There's a Facebook group, if you're not part of it, for Dice Tower East. I mean, there's a Facebook group for Dice Tower West, Dice Tower East, Dice Tower Retreat, Dice Tower Cruise, and the Dice Tower. You know, there's Facebook groups for all these. You're welcome to join them. Come on in, ask questions, and be part of them there. I appreciate you folks asking questions here. I appreciate you all. There's all videos that have already gone up today, Board Game Breakfast and Week in Review. More are coming your way. Tomorrow we're doing a live play of Oathsborn, I think it's called. Then on Wednesday, we're doing a crowd surfing. On Thursday, we're doing a live Board Game Breakfast and our top 10 hilarious games. And on Friday, we are doing a back talk. So that's all live stuff. There's also reviews. Like I said, I've been doing reviews today. I'm about to jump back in and do some more. Appreciate y'all. We'll be back with more Q&As in the future. Until next time, though, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. See you next time.